Welcome. It is Mitch. I'm on YouTube. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel as we build this thing up. The goal is 1,000 subscribers by the end of the Packers season. It costs you nothing. It helps me immensely. It takes 2 seconds. Just click the subscribe button if you're so inclined to do so. Report from ESPN today, Jeremy Fowler. I'm forgetting the other. There was another reporter involved. I think at least one more, maybe two. Just kind of throwing out some trade whispers, rumors, things that they're hearing, reports, and then some other people who cover a variety of other teams coming out with other names. And as we kind of near towards the NFL trade deadline, this is going to become more and more prominent. There were some Packer names included. I thought it was certainly worth it enough to record a video and put it out there because some of it just makes zero sense. I can't imagine any world where it would happen as it pertains to some of these specific players that were linked. And we can start with Rashan Gary. Jeremy Fowler, in his report, said that, Nick Bosa's out for the year, and that's a huge miss for San Francisco, arguably their best defensive player. If he's not their best defensive player, it's linebacker Fred Warner, who's also out for the year. San Francisco still deems themselves, obviously, as, they could, if they won the NFC West, even without those two and some other injuries they've had. Kittle's been on IR, designated to return. Brock Purdy's missed a bunch of time. You never know with Christian McCaffrey, although he's been good so far this year. San Francisco could very well still win the division, so they will buy it. It appears right at the deadline, and they could go big game fishing with a name like Rashan Gary, and that was the link that Jeremy Fowler had put out there. He had said he expects San Francisco to add an edge rusher, and he said, I'll find the report directly, but that he would expect San Francisco to at least reach out and ask about Rashan Gary, which again to me is like it was Graziano. That was the other reporter involved in this, and how he worded it was they both said that the Niners consider Trey Hendrickson from Cincinnati, who could sell even though they just traded for Flacco, that San Francisco considers Trey Hendrickson an ideal fit for their defense. Other potential options, Fowler said, that I suspect the 49ers will check in on include Rashan Gary was the first name he mentioned. And he also mentioned Kingsley Enagbari. So let's start with Rashan Gary. And to me, when I saw that name, I was like, it isn't happening. It's not happening. Rashan Gary's first on the team in sacks, quarterback hits, tackles for loss, second in quarterback pressures. And you look at what Green Bay did. They took a massive swing. Goody did right before the start of the season, acquiring Micah Parsons from Dallas. Wasn't the point of trading for Micah Parsons to pair him with Rashan Gary, to get Rashan Gary more one-on-one looks, set him up in more advantageous spots? Micah Parsons is always going to get his, right? Leads the team in pressures. Maybe the sack numbers aren't where you thought they'd be through 5 games. What does he have, 2.5 or 3? Somewhere right around there for Micah Parsons. But he's getting double-teamed left and right. He's getting held without the penalties being thrown left and right. But it has freed up Rashan Gary, who leads the team with 4.5 sacks. And as I mentioned, also leads the team in quarterback hits, tackles for loss, second to only Parsons in quarterback pressures. So you trade for Parsons right before the start of the season. It's to get a guy like Parsons, who is on a Hall of Fame trajectory in his career. There's no doubt about that. But it is also looking at your defensive front and saying, man, if we can pair Parsons with Gary, or even if you want to include the trio with former first-round pick Lucas Van Ness, who's in his third year and having a very good start to the season. Of course, he was injured, foot injury, and didn't return against Cincinnati last Sunday. But the point of getting Micah Parsons wasn't to then turn around and say, okay, this now makes Rashan Gary expendable. Let's trade him mid-season. You traded for Micah Parsons to really hone in, quite frankly, on a championship window while you have Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons isn't a quarterback, but he's a player you trade for if you have championship aspirations. Green Bay is a buyer. They are not a seller. And even if you try to sell me on the point of, well, they could trade Rashan Gary and instead of draft picks, maybe they get a starting caliber player back. I'm not buying it. They aren't going to trade Rashan Gary, and there's so many reasons as to why they won't. And it starts with acquiring Parsons right before the season to form this duo or trio with Parsons, Gary, and then LVN. And you have to keep in mind, as I mentioned with LVN, he was just injured on Sunday, did not practice on Wednesday. If you trade Rashan Gary, are you comfortable with relying heavily on guys like Kingsley Enagbari, the rookie Baron Sorrell, Oliver Still, no word on if or when he'll be ready at all for his rookie season? Because right now, LVN did not practice Wednesday, could play on Sunday, might not, could miss a couple of weeks, might not. But you trade Rashan Gary from now until the deadline, you're putting a lot of chips and a lot of pressure on some of those guys deeper down on the depth chart. The point of getting Parsons was to pair him with Rashan Gary, not to then in turn trade Rashan Gary this year when you believe, what is Green Bay, one of 4 teams with just 1 loss left? Why would you give up a piece like Rashan Gary for picks or even to acquire a starting caliber player? Rashan Gary is part of the solution for this Packers team, not a trade chip to give away midseason right now. And his contract is very reasonable. That's another reason why this didn't make a lot of sense to me. Rashan Gary's under contract through 2027. He's not on an expiring deal. You know, a lot of times in Major League Baseball, I'm thinking about NBA. Yeah, Major League Baseball to me, and I'm not too tied in with the NHL, so I'm not going to go down that avenue. But Major League Baseball is the one sport that when the trade deadline comes around, you see so many rental players, as they deem them, traded, like guys who are on expiring deals, relievers, bats, starting pitchers. Like there's so many moves around the MLB trade deadline where it's like, hey, a contender is giving up a couple of good prospects to get a rental, and they'll need this rental, this guy on an expiring deal to work out. You don't see it as much in the NFL. The trade deadline in the NFL is pretty tame compared to what we see in Major League Baseball and the NBA. But Rashan Gary's under contract through 2027. He's not on an expiring. And his deal this year is worth $17.2 million. Next year it's $19.5. Like, yeah, it's a lot of dough, but when you stack it up to what his production has been so far this year, his reliability throughout his career, he's typically available outside of that ACL injury a couple years ago that happened in Detroit. Rashan Gary, like what Green Bay is paying him versus what they're getting back in production, it is very, very reasonable. And you're in win now mode. That signal was made very, very clear after the Parsons trade. Trading Rashan Gary makes 0 sense to me. San Francisco can call all they want. That's one where Goody can pick it up, hear what they say, boom, hang it up. You don't even entertain the conversation. I wouldn't even say like, well, what are you willing to give us back for someone like Rashan Gary? Because this is a team captain. It's a star player. I wouldn't say Rashan Gary's a superstar, but he is a star player, a big part of the defensive front. And the one reason I could never, ever, ever see this happening, given the timing, the circumstances, and the 2 teams that would be involved. Can you imagine a world, and I'm being serious right now, can you imagine a world where Fowler's reporting comes to fruition and, oh my gosh, Green Bay shockingly trades Rashan Gary, goes to San Francisco. Imagine a world where San Francisco gets Rashan Gary. These 2 teams butt heads in the postseason. Rashan Gary has a huge game. 49ers beat the Packers. That is, for Goody, that is career you-know-what. I can't say the word on YouTube, but that is career you-know-what. All that good faith built up following the Parsons trade where everyone was like, oh my gosh, Green Bay finally did it. They stepped into the box. They took a huge swing. They landed Micah Parsons. They've parted ways with 2 first-round picks and Kenny Clark to do so, a team that covets draft picks as much, if not more, than most of the other teams in the National Football League. And they traded 2 first-rounders plus Kenny Clark to get Micah Parsons. All that good faith built up for Goody after the Parsons trade goes right out the window if you send Rashan Gary to San Francisco. I promise you of that, especially if that trail would play out in such a way where Niners get Gary, Packers, 49ers meet in the playoffs, which is not a far-fetched idea. It is not. I know they're missing Warner Bose the rest of the year. There's still a lot of talent, a lot of pieces in place for Kyle Shanahan and company. And then Rashan Gary were to go off against Green Bay in the playoffs. I mean, that's absolute nightmare scenario. The timing doesn't make any sense. The linked team doesn't make any sense. How Gary's producing on the field doesn't make any sense. The fact that you just traded for Parsons to team him with Gary and LVN doesn't make any sense to then send Rashan Gary away. So I saw Rashan Gary's name in the report, and I was like, that's not happening. It's not happening. Mitch, I'm on YouTube. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Always appreciative of all the support. It costs you nothing. Just click the subscribe button. Helps me a ton as we try to build this channel up, pop up on more algorithms. Romeo Doubs. First off, let me just say, I'll preface by, I'm not going to bury the lead on this one. I want a Romeo Doubs extension, not a trade, not a let this year play out, highest bidder. Oh, Romeo Doubs is gone in free agency next offseason. I want a Romeo Doubs extension to stay in Green Bay for the long haul. I do think it's a bit odd that his name has been brought up like multiple times by multiple reporters dating back to like last year. And again, there was a little bit of spillage, right, last year where Doubs was frustrated with his role and skipped practice, didn't tell anyone on the team, was suspended for the game against the Rams in Los Angeles. That is so far in the rearview mirror that LaFleur referenced it like 2 weeks ago, and he said that That was a one-off. That was the phrase LaFleur used. He was like, that was a one-off, not the same guy. Like, this dude's coming in. He's motivated. He's a great teammate, great leader, so on and so forth about Romeo Doubs. And you see it. Like, Josh Jacobs had a touchdown. I don't know if it was I think it was against Cincinnati. And they cut away to Romeo Doubs, and he's just going, like, crazy on the sideline. And he was quiet, tame, reserved whenever you would see him in clips from practice, training camp. You know, the Packers social media team will put out these questions, and they'll do like a 60-second little video, and it'll be like the question of the day, and Romeo Doubs always quiet, reserved, and he's much more even alive. And those, like, you take note of those little things, and it's like Romeo Doubs is becoming way more comfortable with himself, with Green Bay, with the team, things of that nature. I want an extension. But all these trade talks circulating around him, and his was another name that was brought up today in a report or by a reporter. I do think it's odd that his name keeps coming back up, dating back to last year when it seems like he's in such a good place right now. And considering, like, Romeo Doubs leads the team in targets, receptions, receiving touchdowns, and he's second to only Tucker Kraft in receiving yards. And he's first in snaps played at wide receiver by a very, very wide margin, on this team. I have said before about Romeo Doubs, he will probably never be a bona fide number one, no doubt wide receiver in terms of he's not going to be Jamar Chase. He's not going to be Justin Jefferson. He's not going to be CeeDee Lamb. Even other guys like below that rung, like, to me, he's not going to be Nico Collins. Like, I love Nico Collins of the Houston Texans. Like, that's a number one wide receiver. Is Nico Collins, Chase, or Jefferson, or CeeDee? Probably not. Or Neighbors. I think Malik Neighbors, I know he has the knee injuries out for the year, but that is a top tier, no doubt, number one superstar wide receiver. Romeo Doubs, to me, will never ascend to that, but he is undoubtedly the go-to guy for Jordan Love and this offense at this stage. You're in a pinch, you're in a bind, you need to move the sticks, you need a big reception in the red zone. It's pretty much Romeo Doubs and Tucker Kraft right now, and I know you can say, well, Watson's going to be back very soon, as early as this weekend against Arizona. Jaden Reed's return is imminent as well. And what does that mean for Doubs? I think Doubs is so established at this point that the snaps are going to be there. Like, Romeo Doubs' snap count total might take a little hit, but it's not going to be significant once Watson and Reed return, because we saw last year when all those guys were on the field at the same time, Doubs was always getting a heavy amount of the snap count total. So the trade talk with him, I don't like it. I don't get it. Trading Doubs would also, it would put a ton of confidence into the idea, if you're Goody and the Packers, that a wide receiver group that has dealt with plenty of injuries is going to stay healthy the rest of the way this year, and that's quite a big leap to take. I know the larger picture of this, and it circulates around, like, we can call a spade a spade. After next year, not this year, after the 2026 season, all these wide receivers that are currently in focus for Green Bay on the team, it's not going to be the same, right? Like, every team has turnover, right, year in and year out. You never bring back the same 53-man roster, like, ever. There's always at least a little bit of turnover. But specifically with the wide receiver position, it makes a lot of sense because of where contracts are at, right? Like, Romeo Doubs is on an expiring rookie deal now. Like, he's set to hit free agency at the end of this year. And then you give Christian Watson a one-year extension a few weeks ago, I think about a month ago. But Watson, Wicks, and Jaden Reed will all be in the final year of their deals next year, going into the 2026-27 offseason. And so you just drafted Matthew Golden in the first round, Savion Williams, who can barely get on the field now. Like, Savion Williams played 7 snaps on Sunday, and that's with Watson and Reed out. I think he's just a gadget player right now. They're not comfortable giving him a larger workload. I don't know if it's the route tree. I don't know, but clearly, like Green Bay, if he's not getting, 15 to 20 snaps with Watson and Reed out, it's not going to get better for Savion Williams this year. This is a longer developmental plan with Savion Williams, right? But you took him in the third round, Matthew Golden in the first round. You're not going to be able to bring back Doubs, Watson, Wicks, and Reed all on new long-term deals. It's just not going to happen. But I look around the landscape for Green Bay, and I wonder more so with a guy like Wicks, who we'll get to in a minute. To me, there's something to be said about the reliability of Romeo Doubs, the clear and apparent trust that Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur have in him, and the production he puts forth on the field on a weekly basis. I want Romeo Doubs for the long haul in Green Bay. Certainly don't want him traded. Matthew Golden might become your number one wide receiver. Maybe Green Bay's offense is just built where there's constantly going to be targets going this way, that way, every which way. That's kind of how it seems to be built right now. Like Matthew Golden might emerge as a true number one bona fide superstar wide receiver, but Green Bay's offense right now in the last few years hasn't functioned as one like when they had Devontae Adams or Jordy Nelson, like these true number one guys for Aaron Rodgers in those iterations of Green Bay offenses. But Romeo Doubs, I know there's a lot of chit-chat about him. I want the guy to get an extension. I have voiced that to numerous buddies in the last few weeks. Like, if Romeo Doubs makes a big play, he had 3 touchdowns, was it, against Dallas? I was sending texts left and right, like, extend Romeo Doubs, give Romeo Doubs an extension. I think there's a lot of trust with him in this offense. The production's there. The reliability is there. I know he had a couple of concussions last year. He's wearing the Guardian cap now, but I love me some Romeo Doubs, so I hope he sticks around. 2 other names I wanted to touch base on. Mitch, I'm on YouTube. Please subscribe. But let's just talk about Wicks because I brought him up, so we won't save it for last. This, to me, when you look at the wide receiver spot, is the more reasonable of the 2 names that were whispered about on this Wednesday. I guess it depends on when you watch this video, but the reports initially came out Wednesday. Wicks is a name to me that's more reasonable or more likely than Romeo Doubs. But you have to ask yourself, again, you're in a championship window. Reed is going to be coming off a broken collarbone and a broken foot, 2 surgeries at once, 2 for the price of 1, right? Not really, but, and then Christian Watson off the torn ACL, hasn't played yet this year. Again, could come back as soon as this weekend against Arizona. You have to ask yourself the question, though, like, is getting a you're not getting a first, second, third, fourth round pick for Dontayvion Wicks. Is it worth getting a late round pick to part ways with a guy that right now maybe Green Bay looks at and they're like, probably aren't going to give him an extension, but he's still under contract through next year? I keep circling back to one thing. This is a championship team, or at least believes it's a championship team with a championship caliber roster. The fact that the reports today aren't, hey, here's who Green Bay could be targeting to receive in a trade, is kind of hard for me to wrap my mind around. And instead it's like, oh, Romeo Doubs, teams have been calling about him. Dontayvion Wicks, same thing. San Francisco, they're smitten on Rashan Gary. They're going to call Green Bay. Kingsley Enagbari, another name. There aren't too many instances where a team believes it's a championship contender, is one of 4 teams left with just 1 loss as we're at the 1/4 mark of the season now, past it. And the reports that come out today when they're breaking down team A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and you get to the Packers, and it's like, here's who they could trade. And it's like, why are we not talking about what they could trade for? And so you have to just weigh that. Like, Wicks becomes a more important part if injuries pop up like they have now. And again, the production necessarily hasn't been there this year with Wicks on a consistent basis, even with Watson and Reed out. Again, Reed played week 1 in the first drive of week 2. So for all intents and purposes, how I view it through my prism is like Reed's been out for pretty much most of the season so far. So you have to weigh, like, is it worth getting a late round pick for a guy in Dontayvion Wicks who could have to step up even more and deliver down the road this season as you try to navigate your way to and then through the postseason? That's where it's like the dude's not a free agent at the end of this year. Romeo Doubs is. Wicks is under contract through next year. So why does it – I don't see how it would make much sense for Green Bay to say, let's trade him now, instead of, if you don't think you're going to give him an extension, you can wait until the offseason to do so. So another name that it's – I don't understand how Green Bay is being perpetrated as like a team that, oh, they could trade this guy or that guy. It's like they should be viewed as a team that's going to trade for someone, not trade out some of these guys. So I don't know, but I know with Wicks, the drops were a problem last year. They haven't been a problem this year, but even without Watson and Reed on the field, he's got 12 receptions for 129 yards and 0 touchdowns so far this year. And it's clear that Romeo Doubs, Tucker Kraft are the top options in the passing game. There's no doubt about it. And Matthew Golden is hot on their heels. Like, Matthew Golden is right around the corner. And I mentioned you have these 2 imminent returns. It's not are they going to happen, it's when are they going to happen with Christian Watson and Jaden Reed. I combined the first and last name there of the 2. But you have those 2 guys coming back into the mix, and once they do, it's fair to wonder at that point, like, what role will Wicks have on this offense? Because once those 2 return, you're saying, Doubs is still going to get his looks. Golden's ascending. Tucker Kraft is ascending. He's a star borderline superstar tight end, and then you'll have Watson and Reed back, and so it kind of puts Wicks pretty low down on the totem pole. Rookie deal expires after next year, not this year. Not out of the realm of possibilities, I guess, that he gets traded when I'm talking about these other names that were reported, like Doubs and Gary. But again, why not keep things how you have them in place and then trade for guys? I don't know. And the last name that was brought up was Kingsley Enagbare. I really like Enagbare. I think he's easily overlooked. He's a good depth piece to have, and he plays teams. He has versatility. He can play some special teams. You can line him up on either edge. Expiring deal like Romeo Doubs last year of his rookie deal. I haven't seen a peep about extension talks. It doesn't mean they haven't taken place, obviously, but there hasn't been a single report from this summer up till this very moment where I've seen anything about a Kingsley Enagbare extension talk in Green Bay. There is a lot of good depth at defensive end. Maybe the Packers view that as, hey, Enagbare can be expendable, but again, you're weighing what you're getting in return because you're a contender right now. That's the most frustrating part about that article I read today from ESPN is, again, Green Bay could give up this guy, that guy. What about, hey, Green Bay could be interested in a cornerback. Here's a list of names they could call about. Here's a list of names we think they will call about. So I don't know, but here I'll say this. Rashan Gary, there's no chance. Like I would be as stunned as I was when the Packers traded for Micah Parsons, I would be almost as equally surprised if they traded Rashan Gary right now. Now, at the end of the year, if you want to have talks, right? Because Micah Parsons' contract, Jordan Love's contract, they're eating up a lot. And Rashan Gary's on a reasonable deal, but 19.5 next year. Maybe at that point, if LVN really emerges this year, you say, hey, we roll forward with LVN, Micah Parsons, then we have Oliver, Sorrell, Brenton Cox Jr., who hasn't played this year due to injury. But maybe then that would be the time. I'm saying at this moment, this year, this NFL trade deadline, midseason, there's no chance Rashan Gary gets traded. Romeo Doubs, I can't ignore that there's just been so many reports by so many different reporters dating back to last year. Like, there is something to that, right? They're not pulling this out of nowhere. But I want an extension for Romeo Doubs, not for him to be traded. And then Wicks and Enagbare, again, you're weighing, is it worth it to get a late round pick for a couple of good depth pieces when you're trying to win a Lombardi trophy this year? That's what you have to ask yourself if you're Green Bay, because if you trade Wicks or Enagbare, it's likely that you're getting a draft pick, not a starting caliber player. Like, you're not trading Wicks and getting a bona fide stud cornerback who's already proven himself in the National Football League. It's just that's not how those deals work. That's not how this would work. Those are out of the four, though. It'd be more reasonable to expect a Wicks or an Enagbare to get traded, even though I don't want that to happen. I kind of like how things are going for Green Bay, and I wish, and maybe it will come to develop this way in the next week or two. We'll see more reports about, hey, here's who Green Bay maybe could go after. And Green Bay, typically never a team that's aggressive at the NFL trade deadline, although Goody, all those years that he has said, hey, we always like to be involved, and we like to be involved in the conversations, and then nothing comes to fruition. He gets his big pat on the back for the Micah Parsons trade. I can't see Green Bay parting ways with Gary, Doubs. Again, Wicks, Enagbare may be more reasonable. We'll just have to see. Let me know what you guys and girls think. I'm always appreciative of all the support. Click the subscribe button. Let's get to, I don't even know what I'm at right now. I think I'm 24, 25 away from 400 or something. Let's get to 400 in the next couple of weeks. That'd be nice. Always appreciative of all the support. Again, let me know what you think in the comments. Like the video, interact in some way. It is Mitch M on YouTube. We'll see you later this week for Packers-Cardinals final thoughts.